How much money does an actual private event band make? It's really interesting. I think most musicians feel like they know how much a private event band earns, but they really don't. In this video, we're going to unpack the flow, the structure, the money, how you get paid and how you end up making what you actually earn at a gig. And I think that this is really important because sometimes we can lose sight of it with all the things that glitter, and we lose sight of that. So I'm going to share that in this video. If you find any of my videos helpful, please like, subscribe to the channel. Let's dive in. So let's talk a little bit about the flow and the structure. A lot of the times, a musician will come to a gig and they're paid a certain amount of money, okay? Everybody gets, they know how much they're going to be earning. And if you don't know how much you're earning at a gig, make sure that you find out before you go to the gig so that you're not blindsided later on and think that it was supposed to be more. I mean, that's just general housekeeping. So often musicians will come to a gig and they will notice the venue. They'll notice the way that people are dressed. They'll notice how many people are on the gig. They'll look at, everything about the gig. And in some cases, it's a really nice gig or it might be a really big gig. For some musicians and singers and techs or some of the team members, they might look at it and go, well, this looks like a really big gig. It looks like it's very expensive and maybe I should be asking for more money, or, it seems like the company's earning a lot of money. They can afford to pay me more. After all, I'm bringing a lot to the table and there's a lot that I'm doing at this gig. And just by the looks of the way that the gig is, I think that I should be paid more. So let's break that down a little bit. So first of all, everybody wants to work in a great gig. Everybody wants to work in a great environment, and everybody wants to work in a gig that is luxury or higher class, or maybe there's celebrities there. Everybody wants that. And when you do get an opportunity to be there at those gigs, I think that that's really fantastic. However, the company or the band that got that gig, it didn't just fall into their lap. It didn't just happen. So let's account for certain things that have to get paid. Money has to flow eventually to you, but it also has to flow to other places. What are some of those other places? So some of those other places are band members. Of course, they got to all get paid. A stage manager, if you have one. The techs have to get paid. And of course, we're looking at the gear. Somebody has to pay for the gear that has to be there, the PA and the lights, maybe even the stage, the microphones, the monitors, all of that stuff, things that, a musician or a singer doesn't bring. Then we have to look at the truck. Well, it has to get transported, so there's money to pay for that. Then there's gas that has to get paid for that. Now, that's just, the typical operation side of it. Now let's look at other things that account for the gig and where that money flows. Some of the other things are going to be things like marketing. Well, you got to market out to these people somehow, whether it's Google Ads or you have a website. And on that website, you have content, and that content is being created by somebody, and that took time. So they were probably paid for that as well. Then we're talking about insurance. Well, every event requires a certificate of insurance, a COI, and that certificate of insurance is usually at least $1 million liability, so that if something gets busted up, that you're responsible and the insurance can pay for it. So you have to pay for that for the year. And then you attach each certificate of insurance for that particular gig. So just that administration part alone, if you have somebody that's doing it, you have to pay them. If not, then you do that yourself. That's on your own time. Other things that cost money are the accounting side. How do you get paid? You're either paid by check or you're paid by electronically. And if you're paid by electronically or by check, a software program has to do that. So there's a cost in that as well. And a lot of the times for us, we use QuickBooks Online, and I highly recommend that. But not a lot of people get paid cash anymore. In fact, not a lot of people even carry cash. So these things all amount to more expenditures that the company or the band has to take on in order for this gig to become successful. Then there could be miscellaneous things. There could be things like, water for everybody, or it could be a clothing rack that we provide along with costuming. So we also provide costuming for a lot of the performers. So that, of course, then that's another expense that has to get paid from somewhere. All of these things that I just mentioned, and I'm sure there's probably other things in there, come off the expenses. And then once the expenses are all taken care of, meaning you're paid, all of these other things are paid, then the company gets paid. So the company will typically get paid last or after everybody else is paid. So how does that work anyway? So what we do is when we book a gig, any gig that we book, we factor in all the expenses. So we factor in the gas, the truck rental, the PA, the musicians and the singers and the techs, how much they make, and we create a list of expenses. And then we know, okay, well, all of these gigs and all of these expenses total to $5,000 or $6,000. Well, that's a lot of money. And then we have to factor in the general upkeeping of our company. So that can include marketing. What does that average out? And the website and the accounting software. And then we put an amount for that, which also now gets tagged into the expenses. So now we have all of the expenses, and then we say to ourselves, okay, in order for us to pay everybody and make a profit, we have to charge an X amount. What is that X amount? This is the most important thing. Well, the X amount for us is based on a profit margin. So we might say we need to make a profit margin of 25% or 30% or 50% or 60%. Whatever that profit margin is, that will then determine the cost. So I think that the most important thing for everyone to know and to understand is that when you get paid and how you get paid is based on a lot of moving parts from the back end that maybe you don't see. So when you think, well, I know how much a private event band costs, you don't really know because every private event band or every company might run things a little bit differently. And if they run things a little bit differently or they may not have certain expenses, that of course is going to change per the company and per the band. So looking at what you take home and your involvement in it might be this. So I might make $300 or I might make $500 for the gig, whatever the amount is. Look at that, but also look at your involvement. Are you there the 6 months in the planning part of it and then dealing with client emails back and forth and contractual issues and dealing with the vendor meals and dealing with the coordinator that's at the gig to make sure everything runs smoothly? Or do you have a song list and a list of songs and you're singing those songs and you show up at the gig? That's a very important job. Don't get me wrong. Everything is important and everybody's valued. I just want it to be put into context in terms of the amount of time and the amount of responsibility that goes on different people's shoulders, and that's why they're paid differently. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I want to be making the 10 grand and I want to be making the 15 grand and I want to be making the 20 or 30, 40, $50,000 that a gig has. Well, you can do that and nobody's stopping you from doing it. The thing is that what you're going to have to do is establish a business and then get all of these components that go into the business and running it smoothly. You're going to have to create that. You're going to have to create that system and the structure and the organization. And maybe that might even amount to purchasing gear or having a warehouse or, buying a truck and, all of this organization. Now, if you're up for all of that, then that's great. I will tell you this, not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's built to be a business owner. But for those that can stomach the work, stomach the responsibility, and stomach the challenges that come along to it. Sometimes you get crap from the planner, you get crap from the venue coordinator. Sometimes you get crap from your team, and you have to be able to mitigate all of these challenges that come up, and then go, is that worth it? For some people, it's worth it just to show up at the gig, play your songs, do the things that you love, get your money, and you're on to the next gig. For other people, they might like the whole event production and the whole timeline creation and just all the back end stuff and the producing of the show. Then that's a whole different animal and it requires a whole different skill set as well as knowledge. And you're paid accordingly for that. So I hope this answers the question on how much a private event band actually makes. And I'd love to have your comments and, share with me what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Let's unpack this thing and find out where the bottlenecks are for people so that you can get on with your gig or creation of a company or creation of a band and everything is running smooth for you. Hope you found this enjoyable. Hope you found this insightful. Like and subscribe. There'll be a lot more content to come.